Patty, I am so excited to have you on today's show. Thank you so much for taking the time and talking to us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to chat with you.
I cannot wait. I have so many questions. I'm just like, oh my gosh, let's get to the juicy part. Let's get so many questions for you. And I want to learn about BizMagic and I want to learn about you. And so I am so stoked. But before we dig into all the juiciness, can you just give me a little, first off, tell us who you are and tell me a little bit about BizMagic.
Yeah. So I'm the CEO and founder of BizMagic, and BizMagic's been around for about 6.5 years or so. But I've been doing this kind of work for about 20-ish years or so. And yeah, we primarily help female and gender expansive entrepreneurs, kind of who are doing good, something purposeful and meaningful in the world. That's sort of my passion, is to help others who are doing good, and that's my way of doing good.
Love it.
And so we help them with that, mostly the back end of their business. So think tech stuff like setting up systems and platforms that make people want to throw their computer out the window, and website design and all sorts of stuff. But we also have retainer clients, so we help them really in all aspects of their business. So I help them with admin and social stuff, and then there's mindset stuff that comes with business, and I kind of end up supporting people like that as well, because it's a whole deal, especially when you work with entrepreneurs. You get everything, which is what I love. So yeah, so we really just help everyone in this kind of world doing this type of work, with whatever we possibly can in their business,
And
and love
you
it.
are so needed, let me just tell you, because my other company that I have is I do website design, digital marketing, right? SEO,
Mm,
social media
yeah,
marketing, all that stuff. And my head is always spinning. And
yeah.
I'm a systems geek, so we might be able to geek out on here talking about
Oh,
systems.
I love
I
it.
love systems, right? And I never have enough of them. But but before we go into that, you have like quite a pretty cool journey. Like you are originally from San Francisco and you moved to Frisco. And
Yeah,
how did that move impact you, like your professional life? That had to
yeah.
be a change.
Yeah, it actually really in a lot of ways set me on this particular path with BizMagic, because I wasn't planning on really having my own business in this way. I mean, when I was in San Francisco, I actually, after doing some time in like doing some time, that's how it felt like in retail management, corporate, I'm like, that's not my jam. And so I worked at like a nonprofit theater for 10 years, and I ended up being an operations manager in that. And then on the side, I was working for this woman who was an entrepreneur and worked from her home office. So I kind of did both of those jobs at the same time for 12 years, because San Francisco and need multiple
Right.
jobs
Yeah,
to
it's not
live.
cheap.
And but my whole life I thought I wanted to be a psychologist. Like I was really convinced that that's what I wanted to do, was
Oh my
psychology.
gosh, listen, we might be sisters. That my degree's in psychology.
I
And
love
and I
that.
don't want to skip ahead, but I know that you were in retail and you got promoted really quickly, right?
Yes.
And I did
Yeah.
too. So I'm like, we
Oh, I
might
love
be
that.
long lost sisters.
Yeah. When I first started working, and I was worked at Aaron Brothers, and which I think is defunct now, but was an assistant manager within 6 months. And a big part of that was because I loved figuring out things behind the scenes, and always wanted to, like, how do I do a return? How do I do this? And they're like, Patty, you can't do that. You're not a manager. I'm like, well, then make me a manager. And so and so I just sort of always ended up in the same thing. When I started at the theater, I was just doing, because I did theater tech in high school. And so it, like, when I decided I didn't want to do corporate anymore, in retail, I was like, oh, I just tweaked my resume a little bit and said like soundboard operator at the top, and I got a job at a little
Yeah,
nonprofit theater. And so I was just doing
very
lighting board
cool.
op. Yeah. And it just sort of grew again because of this, like, behind the scenes, and I love it. And I was building websites back in the 90s when Yahoo builders were coming out, so I always loved tech and behind the scenes stuff. And so after about 10 years or so in these two jobs, I left them both to go to school for psychology, because I was like, I'm not going to really get past this little space here in this office if I don't go back to school, or to school, because I never really went, to
Yeah,
college. And so I was just finishing on my AA and I had some personal things happen in my life. And I basically just needed a shift. I was, dealing with anxiety and depression. And it's really
Mm.
hard to live in San Francisco in a lot of ways.
Oh
And
my gosh.
I was tired of living with housemates and I was just over it. And all my family had migrated here to Texas, to Frisco, Texas. None of us are from here. My mom was born and raised in San Francisco. So,
Oh my
so
gosh. And you
I
all
know.
moved just, I mean, was that planned to all move
So
to Texas
m-
or
my
Frisco nonetheless?
I know, right? My cousin met this guy who is like online, I think, who was from a town right next to Frisco called Plano, Texas. And
Oh,
so
okay.
they got married and she moved here to be with him. And then my aunt, my mom's only sister, followed. And then at that point, we were like, oh, it's affordable to live there. So then my brother came and then he had a kid. So the
Mhm.
first grandkid. So my mom came and then, and then another
You're
brother
like, wait a
came.
minute. Like,
And I was
why did
like,
everybody leave me here?
yeah, I was literally the last one left in the family in San Francisco. And so I was like, well, this sucks. Like I can't, it's hard to live here and whatever. While I was going to school, I was doing some side work, like working with entrepreneurs and stuff. But when I moved here and I was staying with my mom to get back on my feet, starting fresh, and half my credits didn't transfer. I got in Texas A&M to move to my bachelor in psychology, and half of them didn't transfer, and I was going to have to spend tons of money. And at this point I was already in my mid 30s, and so I'm like, I'm not going to be able to practice until I'm in my late 40s at this point, and spend tons of money. And I was like, I love business and I'm really freaking good at it. So why don't I just try this thing? And so I just sort of did what I knew, which was business and helping entrepreneurs. And so I just started it in BizMagic and I put some ads on Craigslist. I didn't know,
Hey,
but I did.
whatever. Right. But look
And
at,
yeah, and I got a couple people, and my next door neighbor who was a roofer was like, "Oh, you do this stuff." And so I started working with him and it just sort of started, and now I have a team of 15 people.
I love
There's
it. I love it.
like
And
it
you know
just
what?
grew. Yeah.
A lot of times I think that when I talk to entrepreneurs, you would think that they pick the business they want to be in, but a lot of times
They
I'm
don't.
learning and seeing that the business picks them. It's
Yeah,
like
totally. Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't if I had my way that I thought I wanted, it was to be a psychologist, but I am so happy. This is my
same.
world passion and I love it. I can't imagine doing anything different. And I feel pretty
Yeah,
unemployable as far as working for somebody else ever again at this point.
right?
So I'm
Right?
like, yeah.
I had moved from Ohio to Montana, and I had lived in Ohio my entire life, and when I moved there, I was like, and I had my business at the time, but I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna get a job, a part-time job," because my kids were at that time, they were in college, so it's like, how do I meet people? You
Yeah.
know, where do I go to meet people? Because usually you meet them through the kids connection, or it's like people you grew up with, or it's
Mm,
family, and other than my husband, I didn't have anybody
yeah.
there. So I was like, "Well, I'm gonna get a part-time job," and let me just tell you, I looked, and then I would get to the point, I'm like, "Oh, this sounds like fun," because I all through college retail, from high school through college, I was in
Mhm.
retail, right? So I can run a retail store,
Right?
like, with my eyes closed. So and I'm like, "Oh, this sounds kind of fun, like, not too much pressure, blah," and then it would get to the point to start filling out the application, I'm like, "Do I want somebody to tell me when I have to be here?" I did not fill
Right.
out one application. I was like, I don't want to work for anybody else, not even part-time." I just
Right?
it was so
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah. I made it a year into my business and entrepreneurship, you have dips and little things like that. And so I'd sort of had my first real dip and I was like, maybe I can't do this. Maybe I need to look for a
Oh,
job.
yeah.
And I applied to work like in an optometrist office at the one like inside of Walmart and here in Frisco. And thankfully, and she basically looked at me and she was like, will you take out your nose piercing? And I was like, no, I'm from San Francisco. I'm piercings and tattoos. I'm like, no, this is me. And so I didn't get it. And
Yeah,
thankfully I didn't get it because my business exploded right after that. And so, but that's
yeah.
just like that moment of again, sort of the universe being like, no, no,
Right? It's
just
like, I'm
chill
just
out
gonna
for a
step
minute.
right in
But
front of you,
like,
and
yeah, could I have
let me just
imagined if they actually hired me? Oh my goodness, like I would have hated it.
right? Totally different path than where you are right now.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
everything does happen for a reason,
yeah,
even when we don't get it in the moment, right?
yeah.
It always pans out. So I want to
Mhm.
dive right into
Yeah,
why you're here in this topic, right? So in your opinion, what are the right systems like in a business? Because you know systems, you love systems,
yeah.
but what are some of the right systems for like saving time, saving money? And let's face it, what we all need is we want to save some energy because we
Yeah,
pour every piece of us. So how does that work? What are
yeah.
some things we can do?
So there's sort of two answers to this. So one is the quick short answer that makes everybody happy, which is when I can tell you that there are what I think for especially new entrepreneurs, there are four systems, which is an email marketing platform, a CRM, some sort of online presence, and a scheduler of some sort. Okay, so those are kind of that's like the easy low hanging fruit that I think, and I find working with people is kind of the best direction to go in, so that you have some basic systems in place that are going to save you some time, right? You're not scheduling email to email with people. You're just giving them a link. You have a place instead of trying to explain your services, they can go, whether even if it's a LinkedIn profile and you're not ready
Right.
for a website, right? A CRM, so you're not leaving money on the table and you're actually tracking your leads and people you're talking to so that you're following up and that sort of thing, right? And in email marketing, even though you may not be ready to send emails, but at some point you may. And having a place where people can tell you where that they want to hear from you when you're ready is a big, big thing.
Yeah.
Um, and that's the short version. The long version is that there is no right or wrong system to have in place, because I think one of the challenges we exist, especially for people who are in the online business world, is there's kind of this like sleazy MLM feel that happens in this industry that it's like, well, if you use my program, you'll make six
Oh my
figures
gosh. Can I
2
tell you how
weeks.
much I hate those?
It's so bad. It's
Oh my
awful.
God. Yes.
Yeah.
I hate them. I hate
Yeah.
them. I even hate the Instagram post that says like with all that stuff and well
Yeah.
and Facebook, right? But I'm like, just
Yeah.
stop.
Yeah. And so people start to think, oh, well, if I use ClickFunnels or if I use this platform or that platform, I'm going to make all this money and I'm going to do this stuff. But I mean, really what matters is what you need in your business based on you, right? Well, what's working for you in your business? What's not working? What does your business do? You
Yeah.
don't want something that's going to offer course setup and stuff like that if you're not going to sell courses. Like you're going to get Kajabi and all in one platform or something that does all these things, but all you're going to do is sell one-on-one coaching sessions, right? You're
Right.
spending a ton of money, a ton of energy, you're stressing the heck out, all for what? When you could be using one or two. So typically when I work with people, I take them through kind of a process where they're actually paying attention to their own needs and
Yeah.
then choosing based on that what their systems are and what's right for them, because there is no one size fits all. There is no right or wrong. And to tell people that leaves them in shame about their business and that they're not doing it right. And there is no
Yeah.
right way. So yeah.
I love that. I love that you said there is like no one size fits all, right? That
Mhm.
it's so true because as business owners, as entrepreneurs, we hear all the time, well, you should have this, you should have that. And you're
Mhm.
right. Well, if it makes sense, you should, but if it doesn't, so I want to back it up a little bit first off.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is more of like, a me question
Yeah.
more than anything else, right? Your CRM. I have struggled with finding the perfect CRM. What do you use? And I know we just said it's not a one size fits all, right?
So
I know that, but
yeah,
I
yeah,
ask,
yeah,
I
yeah.
think everybody who's on is like, what do you use?
Yeah. And so again, it's a little bit of a complicated question because a lot of people use CRM as a catch-all for kind of several things. So sometimes people are thinking a CRM is going to do their contracts for them and it's going to do that. And that's really more like a business management kind of tool. A CRM typically, which is a client relationship manager for anybody who doesn't know, is basically a place where you can kind of, whether it's manually or automatically, filter names into it, right? So that you can say, okay, this was a lead. Now I've got a call with them, that sort of thing. So I use, for my business management, I use 17 Hats, and a lot of people will call 17 Hats CRM. They also call Dubsado, Honeybook, they call them CRMs, but I think they're really more business management tools. Um,
Interesting.
yeah. And
I would agree with you. I would
yes,
agree
yeah.
with you with that. And I never looked at it that way because and I apologize for interrupting you,
Oh, no,
but
please.
but truth, right? We're going to have an honesty moment. Really have never used a CRM in my business.
Mhm.
And I mean, and I felt like I was okay with it. Now I do have one now and I've used it, but I've hopped around and I
Yeah,
wasn't with Honeybook. Right now I'm using HubSpot, which is, um, I mean, it's a lot.
it's a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot,
So,
but
yeah.
but
Yeah.
you're right. Honeybook really was more of, what did you say? Business management
Business
system.
management tool. Yeah. Business management tool. So I use Notion. I kind of created my own CRM inside of
Mm.
Notion. I'm a Notion
Talk to
fan.
me, girl. I love it. I love it.
So Notion can be really overwhelming and scary for people because it's basically this blank slate of a tool that you can kind of do anything with. And so I actually run my entire business hub inside of it on the back end. So that's where we have our project management. We built a project management board in there. That's where like I track all of my clients. So my CRM lives there. And so I basically have automations that come. So when somebody signs up in Acuity to schedule a consultation, there's a third-party tool I use called Zapier, for those who don't know that, that then adds that person to my CRM and Notion. And all I do is pull up the page when I'm ready to have my meeting. So I love that. And I also have my like team directory in there, and my podcast, like everything is in Notion.
Everything.
So yeah,
So I've not used Notion before.
oh,
I know, right? Because I'm going to be Googling it as soon as we're
yes,
done.
yes,
But
yes. I have a
it
blog post on it just in case you want to look at.
okay. Well, we're gonna have to share that link in this episode, so you got to send that over
Mhm.
to me.
Yes, totally.
But is it similar to like an Asana or a Monday? Because I've not
So
used Notion.
not really. So kind of, you can make it look like that kind of. So essentially, I always have to look up what they call it because it's very different than anything you'll have ever used before. So it's essentially a platform that allows you, it's just sort of like an open space. Like you open it up and it's a blank page. And on that blank page, you could do anything you could possibly dream of pretty much. So you can make lists, you can add a calendar, you can add a database, you can
Hmm.
put in videos. So like I'll take all of my notes directly inside of there, and then I will drop the video from my meeting in that same thing with my notes, so I can go back, and then I link it to my CRM in Notion. And then you can have it connected to the person, so you can pull up the person and see any meetings you've had with them. Like it takes time. I also sell a
Yeah.
Notion Hub. I'm not here to tout
Well,
that
no,
stuff, but I
no.
do.
Listen, do you have an
Like,
affiliate link too? Can we throw that affiliate link
no,
in there?
because you know what? Here's the other fun thing is it's like $5 a month or something. Like
Shut
it's,
up. Are you
yes,
kidding me?
no,
Is
I'm
that
dead
cheap?
serious. Yeah, it might be
Oh
like
my gosh.
$8 now, but yeah, you
Oh
can
my
get
God,
the
no.
person. Yeah, I
You just
know.
crossed the line. Forget it.
You can get the personal plan, which is really all you need unless you're doing a
Okay.
big business thing. You can do it for free. They have a free option, and it just stops you when you reach a certain number of like data. Um,
Interesting.
but once you do that, you pay $8. So I'm paying $5, $6, whatever it is a month now. And I have my entire team uses it as guests, and we have full functionality.
Very cool.
And yeah, so I run my entire business in here for $5 a month, and it's
You know
spectacular.
what? But that's it, right? So we need
Yeah,
systems that save us time, money, and
correct.
energy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
go
yeah.
ahead.
And again, with this one, I had to build it all, right? So I had to start with a blank page, but I love that stuff. So that's why I started selling the hub, because I saw a need for it. We would start building them for our clients. And then I was like, well, why don't I just sell this? And then you can duplicate it, and then you can customize it for yourself. So there's a lot there. for people who are not very tech savvy, for people who get overwhelmed easily and get lost in that stuff, that is not for you. Notion is not for you. So you might want to use something like you can use HubSpot. They have a free tool, but it can get a little overwhelming too. That's the problem with, so less annoying CRM is one of like the low level CRMs that aren't as overwhelming and aren't based on like leads and sales necessarily, which is the problem with a lot of CRMs. And for those of us who aren't like sales focused and having sales teams. So that's another really good one, less annoying CRM that I found for somebody recently who was like, give me some easy stuff, you know, at an affordable price that's not overwhelming.
So I've got a question for you,
Yeah.
because you had talked about offline. You had talked about stacking multiple platforms or using an
Mhm.
all-in-one. And how do you know,
Yeah.
first off, what is stacking multiple platforms? Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So your tech stack in your business or stacking platforms together, that's essentially the platforms that you're using together that make up how your business runs, right? So when you're looking at a tech stack, you're going to look at like, okay, where's your website housed? What is your email marketing platform? What is your CRM? What is your, if you're using Canva for design, that's in your tech stack as well. Zoom is in your tech stack. So whatever platforms you're using that make your business work, that's your tech stack. And so in most cases, in all cases, we're really going to have a tech stack of some sort. Depending on your business, there may be 3 platforms or 15, right? And then there's options like I mentioned before, Kajabi or Kartra or things like that that are called all-in-ones. And so that, if that's kind of what you were kind of getting to a little bit, the difference between those
Yeah.
two. Yeah. So an all-in-one, that might have like email marketing platform, a place to house your courses, a webinar funnel so that it takes somebody from webinar into a sales page and pushes them through this process to try to get them to buy. It might have a community aspect. So it'll have all these things. And so oftentimes they're very enticing. They have very high price tags. And for some people, they're great, but they're not for everybody because also they do a lot of things good, but they don't specialize in one thing. So if you need email marketing that is really targeted and detailed and funnels, you probably don't want to use the email marketing in an all-in-one in most cases. Does that
You
make
know,
sense?
it makes so much sense. It makes so much sense. In fact, today, because now I am I've used the free CRM of HubSpot for a while. I
Mhm.
am an Asana. I use Airtable.
Oh, I love Airtable.
Right. And of course, like the whole Google Workspace.
Sure.
And so anyhow, I've just signed on, well, not just, but fairly recently for the HubSpot, right? The paying
Mhm.
thing for a year. I
Yeah, yeah,
paid that. And I'm using it, and I definitely can see how it's cool. I see all the good stuff about it.
yeah,
But literally today, I just started putting all my tasks back in Asana because that's the system I'm so used to and the
yeah,
flow. And I gave myself a few months to get used to the HubSpot. And this is nothing against HubSpot. HubSpot is
yeah,
a phenomenal tool,
yeah,
a really, really good tool. But I really feel like what I was feeling is what you just said
yeah,
about, you know,
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
that's what worked for me. And I can't wait to dig into Notion, by the way. And
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll send you some stuff, whether or not you share it with this episode
no,
is
I
it
totally
doesn't matter.
will.
But what I want to say about that, and this is a really important point of when you're building your tech stack, when you're choosing the platforms to use, you really want to think about how you process information. You really want to think about, okay, do I need something really visual? So for me, a lot of people love Trello. People will use Trello for project management. I don't function that way. Asana is where we started before we went to Notion, because I like lists and I want to check it off and I have to
Same.
like, but some people like the board function in Trello and they work better like that. Some people enjoy using HubSpot. So
Yes.
And that's the important thing, is it isn't always reflective on the platform. It's all about you. And the second that we start trying to say, oh, okay, well, what platforms have I used that I actually like? And what was it about them that I liked? That helps inform your decisions moving forward about other platforms that you might like and you might want to use. And so it's really about you and your clients, because when do you
Yeah.
want to think about what your clients and how they process information, how they interact with technology, if they're using any of your systems as well.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And you know what? I feel this is going to sound funny, right? But it's like this peer pressure or
Yes.
whatever to make this platform work because
Mhm.
because I know it's solid, right? And I
Right.
think that I
Yeah.
am it's literally just the layout. Like I'm
Yeah.
so used to the tasks and seeing the tasks, and although they have it, it's just not as visually
Mhm.
appealing
Right. And
as
there's no
when I
unicorn that dances by when you check off a
there's no
task.
unicorn. I can't change the colors and put the little icons in, like all that fun little stuff, right? That makes
Yeah.
tasks just a little bit happier in my world.
Right.
They're just
Yeah.
not there. It's
Yeah.
just strictly business. And maybe
Mhm.
that's the part
But
what's
that hits, I mean, but in all seriousness, that hits a reward center,
it
right?
does. Who
You
knew? I
know?
just like came to that just now talking to you.
Right.
See, you are good
Yeah.
in psychology. You just like talked me through.
I see I get to do everything at once.
Yeah,
I mean, I can't tell
right.
you the
Oh my
conversations
God.
that I
I love
have.
it.
Yeah.
I love it. So I want to touch real quick. So CRM, um, email marketing. Can you like just tell us your favorite ones in each of those categories that you,
Yeah.
whether you use it or not?
Sure. Sure.
What are
Yeah.
some of your faves?
So for scheduling, the top ones that I love Acuity. I use Acuity. It no longer has a free option, which they did before, but I love it because it's really easy to use and there's easy flowing. Calendly is an alternative to that has a free option. A lot of people use Calendly. It's really easy to use, actually. It's even easier than Acuity. For CRM, again, I really love Notion myself. But again, less annoying CRM was really great and easy to use when I just learned it and set it up. And so it is one of the new go-tos that I'll have for clients, especially who are solopreneurs and that aren't looking for high tickets and a lot of overwhelm and fancy functions. But it has less automation. I can get really techie and into this stuff.
Yeah.
So email marketing platforms, ConvertKit is one of my favorites. It's easy to use. It's pretty user friendly. Their support is really great. For people who need more and want more detailed, in-depth funnels. So say like, if somebody clicks a link, then they get this tag. And if they get that tag, then they go here. You want something like Active Campaign, which their prices just like doubled and went up significantly, but they're so robust in what they have to offer. So those are kind of my two favorites in that world. MailerLite is a close third for a free platform. Don't use MailChimp. It doesn't grow with your business.
Oh,
Um,
thank you. I'm right there with you. I agree. I agree.
but yeah, so if you need a free one, go with MailerLite.
Okay.
Yeah, and then websites, I like Squarespace. I primarily build on Squarespace. It's easy to use. They've made it even easier. WordPress, a lot of people love, and it can be really great, but man, it can have a big learning curve. It can get really glitchy sometimes. And there just can be a lot of issues with it. So it's not super user friendly, especially for people who aren't as comfy in technology.
Yeah. But that's
Um,
when you can hire me to do your WordPress site.
there you go. And if you
Because
want
I know how to
Squarespace,
make it not glitchy.
yes, exactly. So then you totally know. Yeah. So
Squarespace,
you can
you're
make
calling
some,
Patty.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's some really cool stuff you can do with WordPress, and there's a lot of customization that you can do really deep with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to do it by yourself if you're going to do it, which in general with websites, hire somebody to do it if you can.
I agree.
You're
There's
going to
so
get a
much
much
more that
better
goes into it.
experience. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. But I also understand because I've been there, right? The
Yeah.
affordability, and
Totally.
there's a lot of free options out there now
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
can do it yourself. But when you get to the point to hire somebody,
Yes.
even though it looks pretty on the front, there's a lot more with like
Yes.
And I can geek out and go deep with this one
Right.
and I won't,
Yeah.
right? But yeah,
Yeah.
just hire somebody. Hire Patty for Squarespace, hire me for
Yes.
WordPress.
Yes. We should start switching because yeah,
We
sometimes like
should.
if somebody comes to me for WordPress, I will be like, sure, for like an extra $500 than I would charge for Squarespace because it just is like it's a lot more to do.
Oh, it's a
And
lot more to do.
a
Yeah,
lot,
depending on
yeah.
what they're asking. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
always like, all right, if you really want it, and it's a simple site, but for anyone who comes to me that isn't, we should
That
swap.
wants something a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
No,
So
yeah.
Patty, how can, if my listeners reach you, how can they find you?
Yeah. So my website is bizmagic.co. And I'm on Instagram a lot, giving away a lot of free information. I love sharing information. So you can follow me at BizMagicCo on Instagram. And I'm also doing free trainings on a regular basis and cool stuff like that. So if you get on my email list through my website, you can stay up to date on that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You shared so
Yeah.
much information. I absolutely loved it. And I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to talk to me.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, everybody, we will see you next week.